Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about the Vancouver Whitecaps in the Moving Forward series episode. So the Whitecaps make their return to the playoffs this season after finishing in sixth place, but unfortunately, just like last time when they finished sixth and made it to the playoffs, it was a first round exit. And albeit, yes, it was a controversial way, and that in some way they kind of got robbed in terms of what we saw in game two of that first round matchup between them and LAFC. And to this day, I have a feeling Vanny Sartini is still screaming at the referee at BC plays and probably are still kind of having a post game meltdown and got a little overboard in terms of some of the comments that he made toward the referee after game two of that game against LAFC. But still, nevertheless, it was still a successful season for this Vancouver Whitecaps team, and there's no doubt that if this off season, if they can get their moves done correctly, which I think so far they have done so, and not to mention if all these players on this team can play pretty much almost similar to what they did last season, this team can quietly be a contender in the Western Conference heading into next year. Now, in terms of the 2023 season, they finished with a 12-12-10 record and finished with 48 points. They scored 55 goals this season, which, if you can believe, that is actually the second best goal scoring record out of any team in the Western Conference. This was a very fun Whitecaps team to watch, and it's not like previous Whitecaps team that this is a team that's kind of more known for its counterattack. This team actually did play some possession soccer during the time under Vanni Sartini, and at time they play some of the best soccer, especially in the second half of the season. They did give up 48 goals, which is kind of on the high side, but keep in mind, in terms of the goal allowed that they had, and also I just realized I wrote goal scoring twice here. So let me fix that real quick. So this, of course, is the goal allowed that they had, which is 48 goals. But most of those was in the beginning of the season, and this Whitecaps team, they probably could have finished a little higher if they got off to a better start in this season, but they did finish with a goal differential of +7. Like I said, they finished sixth in the Western Conference, but they were eliminated by LAFC in the first round in a very controversial way. Now, in terms of top goal scorer for this team, well, basically, this team is carried by two guys, Brian White and Ryan Gauld. These two guys are probably the best dynamic duo that we've seen in the Western Conference last season, and maybe in the league itself, with Brian White with a career year with 15 goals, followed by Ryan Gauld with 11 goals. Then you got Simon Betcher with 4 goals. Simon Betcher was red hot early in the season, but unfortunately, he kind of fell out off the lineup and really didn't make too much impact as the season goes along. But then you got Pedro Vite with 4 goals, and then in fifth place, he's no longer with the Whitecaps. He's actually now with Columbus, and that is Julian Gresso with 3 goals. Top assist leader, it's going to be Ryan Gauld with 12 assists, followed by Julian Gresso, again, no longer with this team, with 5 assists, followed by Brian White with 5 assists, Andre Kupas with 3 assists, and Richie Larea also with 3 assists to round up the top 5 in terms of the assist leader for this Vancouver Whitecaps team. Looking at the last 5 seasons, as I mentioned last season, they finished with 12-12-10 record and finished with 48 points in 6th position. But previous year, yeah, it was not a great year for this Whitecaps team. They really kind of underperformed the previous season, finishing in ninth place with 12-7-15 record and finished with 43 points. Although I will say that the Whitecaps, they had a chance to make it to the playoffs in 2022 too. That was the year where on decision day it was almost like a play-in kind of mini tournament with 4 teams fighting for those 2 spots, and the Whitecaps, of course, were one of those teams that were fighting for the playoff spot when they play against Minnesota United. The problem is they didn't win that game. In fact, I was there in person of witnessing that, seeing the Loons make it to the playoff courtesy of 2-0 win against the Vancouver Whitecaps. But in 2021, they did make it to the playoffs in sixth place with a 12-13-9 record and finished with 49 points. But in the COVID shortened year, they didn't make it to the playoffs. They finished in ninth place with a 9-0-14 record and finished with 27 points. To this day, I think that's the only time we see an MLS team that gone the entire season without drawing a single game. And I know that was a COVID shortened season, but that's kind of impressive. The fact that the Whitecaps actually went the entire season without drawing a single game. And then in 2019, yeah, it was a pretty disastrous year as well. They were in 12th place with an 8-10-16 record and finished with 34 points. But that's back when the Whitecaps were still stuck in neutral, and this was kind of previously to the Mark Dos Santos era. The Mark Dos Santos era was in 2020 and 2021, and then of course Vanni Sartini kind of took charge of that team after Mark Dos Santos decided to move on from this team, and that's kind of where they are right now. Now, in terms of average attendance, 16,745. That's good for 27. I think the attendance is going to continue to go up. I mean, I know the Whitecaps have not had some good attendance in recent year, but can you blame them? I mean, it's hard to draw some good attendance when you have been just a team that ever since they came into the league, they have not really had a lot of success in the league whatsoever. But the fact that they are playing this much better brand of soccer under Vanni Sartini, and not to mention this team is starting to get better, I have no doubt the attendance is going to climb to a point where we could see them hit as close as to the 18,000, or even if they are going to be really good next season, they could hit the 20,000 mark. Because if there's one thing we know about attendance is that if your team is doing well, fans will show up when your team is doing well. I mean, don't be surprised if this team is going to be averaging 20,000 plus at BC Place. If this team can be finished near the top part, or at least being at near the top part of the standings while playing the similar style of soccer that they played last season. Now, in terms of MVP, it was really between Ryan Gaul and Brian White, and I could have easily picked both of them being on there, but just for me to keep the rule in terms of I have to at least select one player in terms of being the MVP, I'm going to go with Ryan Gaul because, Ryan Gaul is the guy that not only does the goal scoring, but also a playmaker on this team as well. And that we talk about how a lot of teams have been looking for that number 10 and have been desperately looking for it so that it can really springboard the attack. The Whitecaps is one of those teams that they're very thankful that they found their number 10 in Ryan Gaul, and it was a bit of a gamble too because when they decided to get him, there was a lot of skepticism that we don't know how good he's going to be. And I think in his first season, while I know his goal scoring tally didn't tell us the story, his assist chart definitely tells the story. He was definitely a playmaker, and then this year he kind of just take that up a notch with him being also a goal scorer of this team. Now, again, most of them did came from the penalty spot, but still, a guy like Ryan Gaul that not only be a lethal playmaker, but also a goal scoring like him. We're starting to talk, getting into the conversation that Ryan Gaul might be belong in terms of the top five list, in terms of the best number 10 in the league. And there's a lot of good number 10 in this league. Guys like Emmanuel Reynoso, Hani Mukhtar, Sebastian Driussi, and Lucho Acosta, all these number 10, even Thiago Amada. I would say Ryan Gaul may belong in that conversation, and I would even argue that he's probably the most underrated one because I don't think a lot of people realize how good he is, and he's going to be good for this Whitecaps team for the next couple of years. Now, in terms of disappointment, there wasn't really a lot of disappointment. I at the shoes. I thought last season pretty much everybody performed at the level that they should be, but I'm gonna go with Sam Adekugbe mainly because this was supposed to be a guy that can bring some reinforcement in terms of the defense. I mean, after they decided to get him in the summer transfer window, they thought that this would help in terms of solidifying their depth chart in the defensive end. Nope. Instead, he was a liability at best, and the worst part of him really was shown in that game one of that playoff game against LAFC because he was exposed in a big way in that game against LAFC, and that for a guy that there was a lot of people say that he could be just as good in the back line for this Whitecaps team and just getting absolutely tear apart in that playoff game and even in the second half of the season. Very disappointing season for Sam Adekugbe, and we'll see whether if he can bounce back. Now, in terms of young players to watch, I kind of debate between Pedro Vite and Ali Ahmed because both of these players has been really good. In the end, I'm gonna go with Ali Ahmed, a guy that I'm pretty sure is drawing some attention from the Canadian national team. This is one of those young Canadian that definitely could be breaking into the Canadian national team and just had a breakout season for this Whitecaps team, and I think he's going to get even better heading into next year. I mean, the Whitecaps have developed some relatively good talent in the past before, but this is probably one of the best one with getting the likes of Ali Atman and after an incredible season that he has with the Vancouver Whitecaps. So what went right for this Vancouver Whitecaps team? Well, a lot of things went right. I mean, the Ryan Gull and Brian White connection was definitely a huge thing. I mean, how many times I've said in a review involving a Whitecaps game, I've said, well, basically Ryan Gull scored from Brian White because that's been kind of how it is throughout the season. It seems like both of these guys not only have strong chemistry, but both of these guys are easily one of the best dynamic duo, and why this Whitecaps team was one of the most lethal attack in the league this season. Another Canadian championship win. So again, for the second consecutive time, they won the Canadian championship. And I know the Canadian championship is really compete between three MLS team. I mean, when you look at get the past in terms of the Canadian championship, there's pretty much nobody that has won the Canadian championship besides an MLS team. But for a while, it was actually really between Toronto and Montreal. I mean, those were the two teams that were winning the Canadian championship and were meeting each other in the final, and the Whitecaps would always find some really stupid ways to get eliminated. I mean, I think that Whitecaps fans will not forget how in back-to-back years, just not long ago, that they got eliminated by Canadian Premier League team. They got eliminated by Pacific FC in one year, and then the other year they lost to Calgary FC in the Canadian Championship. Well, that has been completely different under Vanni Sartini. I mean, this team has been the more dominant force in the Canadian Championship. And while I know when you look at the other Canadian team, they haven't been doing relatively well, though I say that. And Montreal was very good last season, and it was quite surprising the fact that, despite the fact that it was pretty clear that Montreal was the best Canadian team last season. This year, though, it was pretty clear that Vancouver were by far the better team. But still, you got to say that, winning the Canadian Championship, and with them only winning two of them, besides this back that they have gone, which, you could also say that this they have now won just as many Canadian championship in these last 2 years as they have done pretty much in their existence, and that, yeah, great win for them, another trophy under their belt, and most importantly, they get a chance to go back to the CONCACAF Champions League. And then, of course, I think the other thing that went right, and this is kind of a very underrated thing that people don't talk about, but it's the 7 goal or the 7 game road trip that they had. 7 goal road trip. I don't know what that that is. I mean, they definitely scored more than 7 goals doing that 7 game road trip, but that 7 game road trip that started in September and really was down the stretch. That was really the road trip that was going to define whether or not if the Whitecaps were going to make the playoffs or not. And after that loss that they had against the San Jose Earthquakes coming into that 7 game road trip, I was very concerned for the Whitecaps for the fact that it seems like they're not gonna make it out of it. And consider this team has not been a good road team in past, and really in the beginning of the season, they definitely did not look like a good road team. I mean, it took a while for them to finally get their first road win. It was against LAFC of all team that got their first road win, but in that 7 game road trip that they had, it feels like it was a daunting task for them. It felt like that might be the time where they fell out of favor. Now, obviously, doing that 7 game road trip, they did had some relatively easy team that they get to face, but still, the fact that they're able to get out of that 7 game road trip, and the fact that they were still in playoff contention at the end of that road trip, it just shows you how good this Whitecaps team was and how good Benny Sartini is. And I think if there's any team that can survive a 7 game road trip, and when you have a 7 game road trip like that, not only you need your player to be at the best during this grueling road trip, but you need some motivation from your head coach to try to grind through this long road trip. And what a guy to have, but probably the most energetic, and a guy that I have mentioned many times before. He's basically the Dan Campbell of MLS. That is Vanni Sartini, and yeah, I mean Vanni Sartini really did a great job in terms of motivating the team every single game in that 7 game road trip. And that, I think, after when they survived that 7 game road trip and they were still in playoff contention, that's when you know that this Whitecaps team was going to make it to the playoffs. So what went wrong for this Vancouver Whitecaps team? Again, not much that actually went wrong for this team. I mean, the two things that went wrong that I've had out of the three is pretty much from that playoff game. I mean, coming into the playoffs, I thought the Whitecaps were going to be a team that could make some noise, but they unfortunately did have to face against the defending champ, and game one against the defending champ on the road at BMO Stadium was an absolute disaster. Now, I know that LAFC started to find themselves in form, and that they're a team that is always tough to beat when they're playing at BMO Stadium, but still, I was expecting the Whitecaps would show more fight in that. And what was so frustrating in that game, set pieces undo the Whitecaps. And heading into last season, that was kind of a big emphasis for this Vancouver Whitecaps team. They had to be better in terms of set pieces. And throughout the season, they were better in terms of it. But whatever happened in game one and whatever progress they made in terms of defending set pieces were all wiped out in game one because that was just like literally the 5 goals that they conceded, 3 of those 5 goals came from set pieces. Like that is inexcusable defending on set pieces for this Whitecaps team, and that yeah, because of that, it immediately put them behind the 8 ball. And then we look at what happened in game two. And again, game two was the game where Vanni Sartini had that meltdown. And again, I'm kind of nitpicking here because, his meltdown, I wouldn't say that's kind of something that went wrong with him. I think that's just kind of him showing his passion and also showing what pretty much every Whitecaps fan feels like. And pretty much every neutral fan feels like, because at that point, I really felt bad for the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, that was just absolutely that should have never happened. Where if a player ran into to the referee and stuff like that, if it has anything thing to like the referee should have definitely been in a better position in terms of where he is, and the fact that he wasn't and that happened. Yeah, it was no doubt that created the meltdown that we saw in game two of that eventually ended their season. And then I think the last thing I'll say that went wrong for this team is the home form. The home form was definitely not as good as what we saw last year. I mean, they still did win 8 games this season at home, but for a team that has been heavily reliant on their home form to get themselves into the playoffs, I would say that you can say that they weren't as good as they were last year. I mean, they only lost 3 times this season on the road, but those draws really kills you. Like if you're a team that are looking to try to make it to the playoffs, you cannot throughout that many games and hope that you still make it to the playoffs when you have a bad road record. And the good news for the Whitecaps is that kind of made up for it, because the fact that on the road this season they were a little bit better, and a lot of that has to do with the 7 game road trip when they walk out. That I actually don't know exactly what the record is. I think they at least won 4 out of those 7 games that they had on the road trip. And I even said during that 7 game road trip, at minimum they need to win at least 2 or 3 if they want to still be in playoff contention. The fact that they won more than what many people and what many Whitecaps fans feel like they were going to do coming out of that 7 game road trip, it is simply remarkable. Now, moving forward for the Vancouver Whitecaps, obviously, I think this team should be good heading into next year. I mean, usually when we talk about the Vancouver Whitecaps in the moving forward series, we talk about all the changes that they needed, because this team has been in constant rebuild for the past couple of years. But I feel like this season, they absolutely got this right to now that we started to see a core that is forming in this Vancouver Whitecaps team, and this might be the first time we get to say that, because this team has been so miserable in MLS ever since they came into the league. But this is the first time we see a decent core that can get this team to repeated playoff performance, and if they can, of course, do that. Yeah, again, well, actually, if they can do, if this team is going to have these repeat the kind of playoff appearance, everyone needs to perform just like they did last season. And then of course, Vanni Sartini may be favorites to win the Coach of the Year. I mean, I know it's early days to say, but if he is able to get this team to be near the top of the standings in the Western Conference, don't be surprised Vanni Sartini will get some nomination in terms of being the Coach of the Year. And then, of course, the last thing that this Whitecaps team moving forward needs to do is they're going to be looking forward to that daunting rematch against Tigres in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So, yeah, the Whitecaps, I think that they don't need a reminder what happened last time when they faced against Tigres in the Leeds Cup. They didn't really look that good, and now they're facing them again and against a team that has not only just been a killer to MLS team, but just a team that has been considered to be the most consistent team in the CONCACAF region, and a team that has been winning trophies left and right. That is going to be a daunting match for the Whitecaps. And I think that also is a match that I'm pretty sure Whitecaps fans don't expect their team to win. But one thing they'll definitely expect is the fact that at least they put up a good fight against Tigres. I mean, if you can put up a good fight against a team like Tigres or even cause an all-time upset, then all of a sudden things can really change because, again, Tigres is still the considered to be one of the class, if not the class, of the CONCACAF region, and it's also kind of unfortunate the fact that in terms of all the first round matchup that the all these MLS teams have chosen, the Vancouver Whitecaps got the worst luck in terms of picking up against a Liga MX team, and not just any Liga MX team, but a Liga MX team that has just been an absolute killer for MLS team, pretty much for the past decades or so. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at the Vancouver Whitecaps. And as always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And as always, let me know in the comments below as well if you're a Whitecaps fan, what went right, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.